Ever since Jaws ushered in the dawn of the summer blockbuster in 1975, shark movies have forever remained popular with a certain section of film fans, myself included. However, not every great shark movie has the budget, marketing, or star power of, say, the Meg movies or The Shallows, meaning many a great shark picture has swam a little under the radar, and that's what the focus is on here. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are the 10 scariest shark movies you've probably never seen. Number 10. Mako. With documentary filmmaker Rana Bhagat becoming a laughingstock, she and her crew decide to explore the Salem Express as a way to repair her reputation. For those unaware, the Salem Express is a real-life passenger ship that resides at the bottom of the Red Sea after sinking in 1991. To this day, the vessel contains the corpses of those trapped in the boat as it sank, and it's this trip that pits our characters up against Mako sharks, not to mention their own dwindling mental states. With so much of the movie taking place deep underwater, the dimly lit nature of those sequences only further builds up the dread of what's already a pretty terrifying experience. Not to mention, there's a nice little twist awaiting at Mako's end too. Number 9. Mission of the Shark. The saga of the USS Indianapolis. While Nicolas Cage in a shark-driven movie based around the USS Indianapolis tragedy sounded intriguing on paper, the end result, 2016's Men of Courage that would be, was pretty darn awful. Thankfully though, 1991 saw the events of July 1945 done justice more fittingly with the CBS TV movie Mission of the Shark, the saga of the USS Indianapolis. With the great Stacy Keach as Captain Charles B. McVeigh III, this isn't a shark movie in the same sense as most of the other films here. Rather, the sharks are a background element to the wider disaster of the Indianapolis sinking after being torpedoed by a Japanese submarine. Numerous people lose their lives to shark attacks in Mission of the Shark, but just as featured are the build-up to the torpedo attack, the sinking of the vessel, and how different people react in different ways to being stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Some doing all they can to help others doing all they can for self-preservation. Number 8. Deep Blue Sea 3. For those unaware, yes, not only does Deep Blue Sea have a sequel, but it actually has 2 sequels. And while Deep Blue Sea 2 is utter trash, vastly superior is Deep Blue Sea 3. Here we have Little Happy, an artificial island near South Africa inhabited by a group studying the impact of climate change on great white sharks. Of course, things all take a turn for the bloody when 3 genetically enhanced bull sharks start devouring great whites, accompanied by the arrival of some mercenaries out to cause chaos. Deep Blue Sea 3 is way better than it had any right to be, with this threequel nicely made, beautifully shot, and with some moments of proper dread dotted throughout. Sure, the CGI sharks aren't the best, but the tension surrounding their appearances is extremely well crafted. Added to that, the film also establishes that sharks aren't necessarily just simple mindless killer machines, as has so often been the case in this subgenre over the decades. Number 7. From the Depths. A tale centered on a shark attack survivor dealing with PTSD. From the Depths can at times be a little daft, but in amongst that are some genuinely terrifying scenes. Here we've got Liz, the sole survivor of a shark attack that saw her boyfriend and older sister killed. Struggling to shake the traumatic memories of this incident, Liz is plagued by visions of the deceased duo, not to mention plagued by images of sharks at every turn. It's with those shark visions that the movie goes a little too goofy, such as an awfully rendered giant CGI shark floating down the corridor or creeping behind the curtains of Liz's psychiatrist's office, but the film has some massively impactful scares when it delivers flashbacks of the shark attack. The less is more approach of these sequences works extremely effectively, with the camera focusing fairly close up on Liz as she's floating in a body of water at night, waiting to be next on the menu for the shark that's already devoured her lover and her elder sibling. Number 6. Blue Water, White Death. To some, Blue Water, White Death will be a fascinating, beautiful documentary. To those who forever get chills at the prospect of a shark encounter though, Blue Water, White Death is proper nightmare fuel, myself included. Unlike all the other films on this list, this 1971 Peter Gimbel production is a documentary that shines a light on very real sharks in very real, very dangerous waters, all with the help of the legendary Val and Ron Taylor. Literally, at one point the film crew even head to a shark-infested area known as Dangerous Reef. The clue is right there in the title, avoid that place. What begins as a trip to South Africa ends up taking in various other countries as Gimbel amps up his mission to capture footage of, ideally, great white sharks. From dipping their toes in the water to cage dives to cageless dives, those involved in Blue Water, White Death managed to deliver some truly stunning footage, some of which will genuinely send a shiver down your spine. There's clearly no death and carnage here, it is a documentary after all, but what you have is a film that's full of ominous, edge-of-your-seat dread, while simultaneously being a magnificent magnificent showcase for the beauty of these often feared creatures. Number 5. 12 Days of Terror. A made-for-TV, based on true events movie, 12 Days of Terror has two major things going against it. Firstly, being a TV movie naturally limits its audience and its budget. Secondly, some of those who have seen 12 Days of Terror may incorrectly label it as simply a Jaws knockoff, because Lord knows there are so many of those kicking around. You see, 12 Days of Terror is a period piece based on the 1960 New Jersey shark attacks that saw 4 people killed and that inspired Peter Benchley's Jaws novel. Of course, that novel would be adapted for the silver screen by Steven Spielberg, and so certain beats of 12 Days of Terror do share some similarities with Spielberg's Jaws. Directed by Jack Schroeder, 12 Days of Terror actually upholds the true factual terrors of those real-life attacks far better than Jaws. Clearly, there's not the budget or star power of Jaws, but that doesn't stop Jonathan Rhys-Davies from devouring scenery in his quaint light role. All in all, this 2004 film is a minimalistic, atmospheric tale that's a refreshing change in a subgenre that's, let's face it, so often nowadays all about excess and outlandish concepts, all trying to outdo each other in how bizarre and usually bad they can be. Number 4. 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. While die-hard shark movie fans may be aware there's a second 47 Meters Down, more casual fans likely have zero idea writer-director Johannes Roberts returned to shark-infested waters with 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. Unrelated to the first movie, Uncaged has an extremely novel setting, with the bulk of the action taking place in a sunken Mayan city. As a group of teenage girls decide to take a scuba diving mission to explore these ruins, they realize they're not alone and have some sharks for company. Making matters worse though, some of this sunken city's structure collapses, trapping their friends and also ringing the proverbial dinner bell for the ocean's apex predators. 47 Meters Down, Uncaged manages to take the usual eerie, creeping dread of a shark movie and turn the tension and claustrophobia up to 11 in using its unique setting to make you uncomfortably wince at the predicaments these characters find themselves in as they make their way through small tunnels, desperately searching for air pockets and an escape route, essentially playing somewhat like The Descent of shark movies, which is proper terrifying. Number 3. Bait. Across the past decade or more, we've had sharks in tornadoes, 6-headed sharks, snow sharks, giant robotic sharks, and ghost sharks that can devour you from the comfort of your own toilet. Yes, really, that is a thing, and it's got a sequel. So if you were to hear sharks in a supermarket, you'd likely pass this off as just another ridiculous gimmick. That's actually the basic premise of 2012's Bait though, but don't let that put you off. With the loved one Xander Samuel taking center stage, Bait sees an Australian coastal town struck by a tsunami that floods the local area, including the local supermarket. And along with that water, there are some rather hungry great white sharks along for the terror too. Rather than being entirely over the top, Bait largely plays things straight, with our characters having to take refuge on shelving units and the like, all while trying to establish a plan to escape the 2 sharks that ominously lurk below them. Number 2. Open Water 3, Cage Dive. Cage Dive is unique in how it takes the stranded in the ocean angle and delivers its story as a found footage movie, meaning you're there for every twitch of the water, every failed hope of a rescue, and for the, spoilers, ultimate demise that awaits the picture's central trio. Trying to convince TV executives they'd be perfect for an extreme reality TV series, brothers Josh and Jeff, and Jeff's girlfriend Megan, embark on a shark cage dive during their trip to Australia. When a rogue wave causes their boat to capsize, the 3 are stuck in the middle of the ocean with only a tiny life raft and their own paranoia for company. That's always a good mix. Sadly, Cage Dive, which had the open water label attached to it after being picked up by Lionsgate, swam under the radar, with some truly garish cover art not particularly helping matters. If you take a chance on Gerald Raskinato's film, however, there's a genuinely good shark movie here. Number 1. Shark Night 3D. A tad gimmicky? Maybe. Still, 2011's Shark Night 3D is an enjoyable popcorn movie with some good scares and a fairly interesting premise. From director David R. Ellis, Shark Night spotlights a bunch of college kids on a lakeside retreat that turns sinister when the majority of these disposable young adults are devoured by various sharks. And it's all revealed to be part of some twisted reality TV series. Again, what is it with reality TV? Let it go, people. It's revealed that these deaths have been set up and streamed out by some locals looking to attract a bloodthirsty audience, which they, to their credit, do. Of course, making this particularly scary is that it isn't totally conceivable that this won't be the next reality TV craze in a few years. Let's face it, there's been The Real World to Big Brother to Wherever Has Talent to the Kardashian BS. Maybe feeding people to sharks isn't that crazy a trend for the god-awful reality TV world.